welcome back to Trading Day. Let's check in on those currencies, see where the Aussie dollar is tracking at the moment. Sitting actually relatively stable, of course, in response to the yuan fixing and, of course, the housing finance data that we had out a bit earlier. It's just sitting at about 69.7 at the moment, so relatively stable. Well, let's move on. Whether the federal government is considering adopting a UK regulation regime regarding hedging that received blame for leaving mum and dad investors worse off when a major global financial trading firm collapsed. But Matt Murphie, a director of the CFD and Margin FX Association, said investors would be severely disadvantaged by a government proposal to ban hedging. Well, for more on that now, we're joined live by Matt Murphie from our Sydney CBD studio. Matt, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Wanted to get your thoughts around this because we mentioned at the top there, this strategy over in the UK seems to have very much left a lot of investors worse off. So why is the government looking at proposing these changes?
Sure. Well, look, first of all, I think that it's been done in the intention of protecting client money. The problem is that hedging client orders is very important to both keep the firm and the client assets safe. And if you cannot hedge those client orders, then in turn firms are forced to run risk, which is somewhat at odds with the idea of protecting client money, meaning that firms need to run risk and potentially, or they actually are forced now to run risk against the very clients that we want to protect. That's the fundamental issue with the legislation. When we do have a look at overseas, because we have some practical examples, it's often said that Australia should move to a regulatory regime not that dissimilar to the UK. Interestingly enough, MF Global is one simple example where clients in Australia got 99 cents in the dollar back with the collapse, where in the UK they only received 90 cents in the dollar. There's other recent examples, our Pari, Liquid Markets, and a number of other cases where this legislation has just proven not to protect client money as it is indeed intended. So that is our issue with it. Our suggestion is that this is a great opportunity to genuinely protect clients, offer better protection, so therefore let's look at some solutions that could genuinely work.
What would be some of those solutions then that you believe would genuinely work? I mean, are you not supportive of the changes to the government in terms of these proposals?
Well, we're completely supportive with the concept of improving client protection. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But when we look at the underlying causes of past collapses and what the government's response is, it is only going to make the problem worse. And what's even worse still is that the clients are going to be given a false sense of security that now they're protected, when you look actual of the unintended consequences, it's something quite to the contrary. Some very simple solutions is tighter controls around accounting, some tighter audit directives and clearer direction to auditors in the event of insolvency to ensure that client assets are indeed returned back to the clients.
So you mentioned there the collapse of some of those companies, you know, MF Global, as you mentioned, BBY as well, they're not being put down to hedging. If the proposed changes were to go through, what sort of impact would it have on various, you know, multinational companies?
Well, I think in terms of multinational, maybe not so much. It's more the local industry that it's going to affect very much. Now, interestingly enough, this legislation has been proposed in response to MF Global and BBY, amongst others. As I've said earlier, MF Global clients under the proposed regulation would have been worse off, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, we believe, to push legislation which would put retail clients in a worse position than what they currently are. And we have a look at other scenarios like the collapse of BBY. Now, from all reports, it appears, according to the reports, that company was trading insolvent, means there was a possible breach in the Corporations Act. So our suggestion is that a change in the Corporations Act to stop someone breaching the Corporations Act is maybe not the most logical solution. There are certain solutions around audit directives, as I mentioned earlier, that could actually better protect clients. And we need to look at issues that would genuinely address, to the best of our ability, companies that are doing the wrong thing. But to simply say that we're going to inhibit firms' ability to hedge in the name of client protection has a lot of irony to it, and we just genuinely believe that it won't achieve the outcome that we all want.
So you mentioned there, obviously, maybe potentially not a huge impact for those multinationals. What about some of those mum and dad investors, though, as we saw across in the UK, that the implications there? Do you think investors would be severely disadvantaged by this proposal to ban hedging, particularly for those mum and dad investors?
Yes, absolutely, because the mum and dads rely on the public, they rely on the government, the regulators to obviously protect them. On the surface, it's a very saleable solution. We're banning client money for hedging. So those mums and dads now feel secure. But with an understanding of risk management and how risk management principles work, in actual fact, they're a lot worse off. And this is the problem that I have, is that those very mums and dads that we're looking to protect are now potentially or will be worse off. We've seen that they're potentially worse off with collapses such as Alpari in the UK. And what's even worse is then it encourages, if the firm can't hedge, to be on the other side of the client transaction. Now, there are some firms that already do that, but our suggestion is that we should be creating an industry where orders are hedged, where we want our clients to be profitable, where interests are aligned. And unfortunately, this proposed regulation does the exact opposite. And that's the fundamental reason why we do have concerns with it. A number of people in the industry concerns. Our CFD and FX Association represents 180,000 clients, over 320 staff. We turn over collectively well in excess of $3 trillion per annum, and we have 13 members representing a large portion of the industry. So that's why there is so much concern. Not because we're against client protection, quite to the contrary. What we're saying is let's put policies in place that will genuinely protect the clients that we should be looking after.
Well, let's certainly hope the government does look into or carefully consider some of those ramifications there. Matt Murphy, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.